encountered a familiar face that we had not seen in 3 years. He is one half of the brother and sister duo that we met on the Hill of Pum in 2020. A new order is being established among the tigers in the Narva River Basin. For the past 5 years, we have done our best to look for the Siberian tiger in the Narva River Basin. Regardless of our fervent hope to meet them, the tiger turned up only for brief moments. Despite 5 years in the Narva River, we still know little to nothing about the tiger. Mysterious and fascinating. That is what the Siberian tiger is.
Celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture, history, and diverse experiences. This is the Independence Hall of Korea. Upholding the values of the independence movement, and together with the whole nation, we will make Korea great. The Independence Hall of Korea.
Travel creates new experiences and unforgettable memories. Through landscapes, food, scents, and textures, it awakens and satisfies our senses. The endless joy and inspiration of traveling.
With the presidential election 8 days away, the DP's Lee Jae-myung vowed for pragmatic diplomacy for the national interests as he toured the Seoul metropolitan area today. Also in the capital region, the PPP's Kim Moon-soo touted his economic achievements during his time as Gyeonggi-do province governor. Russia launches its largest aerial assault on Ukraine, killing at least a dozen people as the two sides exchange prisoners of war. As international criticism pours in, U.S. President Donald Trump heavily criticized his Russian counterpart. The humanitarian tragedy only grows in Gaza, with an Israeli strike killing 9 children in one family, while others die from hunger and malnutrition. It's May 26, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. Presidential hopefuls are now in their final week of the official campaign period. The Liberal Party's main contender today unveiled his diplomatic pledges, promising pragmatic diplomacy. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung on Monday pledged to strengthen South Korea's diplomacy and security amid a rapidly changing international order. He said he would pursue pragmatic diplomacy centered on the national interest based on a strong South Korea-U.S. alliance. He added that he would work to rebuild trust in the alliance, which he says was damaged by a declaration of martial law. He also emphasized close trilateral cooperation with the U.S. and Japan while maintaining a firm stance toward Tokyo when it comes to historical issues.
We need to take a principled stance on historical and territorial issues. At the same time, areas like security, the economy, society, and culture shouldn't be overly restricted because of the historical and territorial issues. While it's not easy to separate these issues, we should approach other areas in a practical way that looks toward the future.
On China, Yi described it as an important trading partner and highlighted the need for stable Seoul-Beijing relations. Regarding North Korea, Yi aims to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula and achieve peace through denuclearization. He said Pyongyang's nuclear threats can no longer be ignored and vowed to work closely with the U.S. to resolve the issue. He also pledged to improve human rights for the North Korean people. Meanwhile, entering the final week of the official campaign period, he held rallies in the Seoul metropolitan area, focusing this time on southeastern Gyeonggi-do province.
Lee Jae-myung has promised to make southeastern Gyeonggi-do province a better place to live with improved access to education, housing, and transportation.
Earlier on Monday, he met with college students in Suwon to hear about the challenges they face with school and finding jobs. He said it's a serious problem that young people are worried about housing and stressed the need for more public dormitories.
It's a real problem that students have to worry about housing. The government should step up and use unused campus land to build more public dormitories.
He also pointed out issues including high meal costs and emphasized the need to expand programs like the 1,001 meals. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The Conservative Party's main contender was also in Gyeonggi-do area, where he touted his economic achievements during his time as governor there. Meanwhile, despite the ballots already being printed, the merger is still on the table for the PPP. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
The capital region is yet again the People Power Party's candidate Kim Moon-soo's focus. The region, consisting of half of the nation's population, is always a battleground region, and Kim could be seeing some hope of winning votes in Gyeonggi-do province, especially as he served 2 terms as governor with a track record of job-making.
During my 8 years as Gyeonggi-do governor, in total I created 43% of all jobs in the nation. I created the most jobs and hosted Samsung's Pyeongtaek chip complex, made Pangyeok Techno Valley and LCD complexes for LG.
He in fact visited the Pyeongtaek Samsung Electronics campus himself. The complex is known to be the largest in the world by land mass. There he spoke of how he supported industries and that it's worrisome for him that Samsung and other big companies recently are leaving for other nations such as the US because of tariffs. Meanwhile, as he rallies around the province, he's been trying to compare himself to his DP rival Lee Jae-myung, who was a governor here also more recently. He's been putting the focus on the legal risks that arose from his time as the mayor of a city in the province and a former governor of the province, while Kim has no legal issues from his terms. As for the election landscape, the PPP believes that the DP's lead is narrowing compared to the beginning of the election campaign, and in the next 8 days, they're trying to make a comeback. One big move, of course, is left for the party: the merger with the Reform Party.
I propose that the Reform Party present its conditions for a potential merger. We are prepared to do everything we can to make it happen. And let me be clear, we are fully ready to embrace the Reform Party's policies for the younger generation, especially those in their 20s and 30s.
Of course, the ballots are already being printed, and the Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok's name will be on it on June 3rd, regardless of the merger, who of course says it won't happen. Kim Do-yeol, Arirang News.
To follow up on that, Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok has reaffirmed his resolve to remain in the presidential race, rejecting the People Power Party's push for a merger. The resolve was shared on Monday, with Lee adding that his party is determined to run and win the race, and that the PPP should pressure its own candidate to resign, not him. The 40-year-old contender recently saw his approval rating reach 10%, amid growing support from those in their 20s as well as 30s, and from moderate voters. Last Friday, 4 presidential contenders appeared on the stage for their second debate to address social division, among others, by the end of which they seemed to stand further apart. Oh Soo-young has the highlights.
While promising social unity, presidential candidates clashed ferociously over politics and policy in their second televised debate. Focusing on social affairs, Friday's topic were social division, social safety nets, and sustainability. The Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung said he would overcome social division and inequality with technology such as artificial intelligence and continue to improve the current national pension system. As the former Labour Minister, the People Power Party's Kim Mun-soo promised to build wider income safety nets for small businesses with improved pension schemes. Reform candidate Lee Jun-seok proposed a major pension overhaul, pointing out that the 2 major parties' legislative revision last year benefits the older generation, while adding a $37,000 burden on every young Korean. He also calls for cuts to unnecessary high-tech scams that ramp up health insurance premiums. Democratic Labour's Kon Young-guk suggested doubling the basic pension to over $500 and building scores of state-run hospitals. Candidates also clashed over climate and energy policies. Left-leaning candidates continued pushing for renewable energy sources over nuclear power. Kim Mun-soo and Lee Jun-seok argued that nuclear power is much more efficient, affordable, and essential to support future industries like AI. But politics overrode policy throughout the 2-hour debate. Lee Jae-myung said Kim Mun-soo was part of the impeached Yoon Suk-yeol administration that declared martial law last year.
The most extreme form of social conflict is an insurrection by martial law. Were they trying to completely wipe out the opposition?
Kim Mun-soo accused Lee's party of insurrection for handing radical left-wing groups seats in parliament and underscored Lee's 5 criminal trials.
In corruption cases like Baekhyun-dong and Daejang-dong, just look at how many people close to him are in prison or have died under suspicious circumstances. Uprooting lies and corruption is the first step toward national unity.
Lee Jun-seok blasted both the leading parties. He said that while the Conservatives are tarnished with Yoon's martial law, the majority Democratic Party is just as guilty of creating a broken society.
You should be ashamed. Those who are jointly responsible for wrecking the country show up in red and blue, only different in color, fighting over power in a shameless world.
The third and final live debate takes place on Tuesday, focusing on politics. Arirang News.
Overseas voter turnout for the June 3rd presidential election has hit a record high of almost 80%. The National Election Commission announced on Monday that a little over 205,000 South Korean nationals living abroad cast their ballots, which is around 79.5% of eligible overseas voters. Ballots will be shipped back to Korea and will be checked at Incheon International Airport, watched by observers recommended by the National Assembly. They will then be mailed to regional election commissions and remain sealed before they are counted on voting day. The overseas voting, which ran for 6 days starting May 20th, closed on Sunday at 223 polling stations in 118 countries. Russia launched aerial assaults on Ukraine on a massive scale over the weekend, which killed at least 12 people. It has drawn strong condemnation from European leaders, as well as from U.S. President Donald Trump, who has sharply criticized the Russian leader, calling him absolutely crazy. Kim Jong-sil has the latest.
Russia launched its largest aerial assault of the war, with at least 12 killed and 60 wounded across several Ukrainian regions after a series of airstrikes late Saturday night. Among the victims were 3 children from the same family in the Zhytomyr region west of Kyiv, according to Ukraine's Internal Affairs Minister.
Let the world wake up and see. How long can they bomb children? We go to bed and do not know what awaits us in the morning.
Ukrainian President Zelensky reported that nearly 300 attack drones and almost 70 missiles were fired during the assault. In a social media post on Sunday, he denounced the attacks, claiming they were deliberate strikes on ordinary cities. Zelensky reiterated his call for stronger sanctions to halt Russia's brutality. Later in the day, U.S. President Donald Trump also weighed in on the escalating conflict.
I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time. Always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people.
Trump also responded to questions about the possibility of further sanctions on Russia.
Absolutely. He's killing a lot of people. I don't know what's wrong with him. What the hell happened to him, right? He's killing a lot of people. I'm not happy about that.
Later, in a social media post on Truth Social, Trump said Putin has gone absolutely crazy and warned that if he takes all of Ukraine, it will result in the downfall of Russia. European leaders also condemned Russia's actions, warning of additional sanctions. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadepool said Putin's disregard for peace cannot be tolerated, while EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas called for the strongest international pressure to end the war. The massive airstrike came as Ukraine and Russia completed a 3-day 1,000 prisoner swap, with 303 Ukrainian soldiers returned on Sunday as part of the exchange. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The plight of people in Gaza persists as children fall victim to Israeli airstrikes too often, with the recent one killing 9 children in one family, while others suffer from the lack of access to food. Ian He reports.
Hamdi al-Najjar, a Palestinian doctor, is in critical condition following an Israeli airstrike that killed 9 of his 10 children. His wife, also a doctor at Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza, had to see her burned children in the ruins of their home.
So she told me her children have died. She went to her house and saw her children burned. May God help her.
According to Gaza's government media office, the children killed ranged in age from 7 months to 12 years old. The only survivor, an 11-year-old, is severely injured. Israel's military confirmed it carried out the strike on Khan Yunis on Friday, saying that it targeted suspected militants operating from a structure near Israeli troops in an area that had been told to evacuate. The IDF added that the claim regarding harm to uninvolved civilians is under review. Meanwhile, Hamas accused Israel of deliberately targeting medical staff and their families and civilians. On Saturday, a 4-year-old child died due to severe malnutrition, raising the hunger-related death toll to over 58 in the besieged enclave over the past 80 days. Also, more than 240 people, mostly children and the elderly, have died from a lack of food and medical care.
My message to the world: besiege the embassies, speak up, break this siege, stop this genocide on the Gaza Strip, on our hungry, besieged people.
Amid growing global outrage, Spain hosted a high-level meeting in Madrid on Sunday with over 20 European and Arab countries to pressure Israel for a ceasefire and lift its humanitarian aid blockade into Gaza. The meeting included EU countries that were once considered close allies of Israel, now joining the international call for restraint as Israel expands its military operations in Gaza. The U.S. urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to delay plans for a full-scale ground offensive in Gaza. That's according to the Jerusalem Post on Sunday, which said the request was made in order to allow ceasefire negotiations and a hostage deal proceed in parallel with military operations. With the ceasefire negotiations deadlocked, Israel has intensified its bombardment and ground invasion in Gaza, with reports saying that its forces now control over 77% of the Gaza Strip. 이은희, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., President Trump demands that Harvard University reveal the names of its international students, following his attempt to ban the school's foreign student enrollment amid a standoff over Harvard's campus policies. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social on Sunday to demand that Harvard University provide its administration with the names and nationalities of all its international students. In the late-night post, Trump noted that 31% of Harvard's students are from foreign lands, some of which are not friendly to the United States. Trump added that his administration wants to know who those foreign students are, stressing that the demand is a reasonable request as the government gives the Ivy League school billions of dollars. Harvard University says there would be over 6,700 names on the list. According to the New York Times on Sunday, the Trump administration's decision to block international students from enrolling at Harvard is raising concerns among other U.S. universities and colleges. The report notes that while Harvard is the administration's target now, it could spread to other schools in the country. In a Fox News interview last week, U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem raised the possibility that other schools, including Columbia University, could face a similar fate. The president of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Sally Kornbluth, slammed the Trump administration's ban on Harvard's international student enrollment, calling it a fatal blow to American excellence, openness, and creativity. The Trump administration has been demanding changes to campus policies, citing the need to eradicate anti-Semitism at universities. Harvard has refused to implement those changes, claiming they infringe on academic freedom. A court has temporarily blocked the Trump administration's plan. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea is closely watching a recent rise in the number of COVID-19 cases in Asia. The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency says it is monitoring the spread, especially in China and Hong Kong. The agency stated that the current situation in Korea is still under control, but it's not time to relax yet. It added that, like last year, there could be another COVID wave this summer. The agency stressed that people should follow hygiene rules and advise high-risk groups to get vaccinated. The prehistoric rock art along the Pangucheon stream in Korea's Ulsan is set to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The rock art, or petroglyphs, include the Pangude rock art, which depicts various animals as well as humans hunting and cutting up whales. Meanwhile, the Cheonjeonri rock art stands out for its geometric symbols. The Korea Heritage Service announced on Monday that ICOMOS, an organization which evaluates cultural properties for UNESCO, has recommended the site for listing. Inclusion on the list is expected in July, making it South Korea's 17th World Heritage Site. Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
Let's begin with football. There was a South Korean national team squad announcement this morning.
Yes, for the 2 World Cup qualifiers in June, away to Iraq on June 5th, local time, and then South Korea play a Kuwait in Seoul on June 10th. Manager Hong Myung-bo announced his squad for those matches this morning. Son Heung-min is in, despite missing the last game of the season for Tottenham Hotspur with an injury. Kim Min-jae is out, though, deemed not fit enough to be involved. There's a first inclusion for Jeonbuk forward Jeon Jin-woo, the K-League 1 top scorer with 10 goals from 15 matches. He is one of 12 players from the K-League, 3 more than in March. Hong said that he wants players who are mid-season and fitter than some of his other options, the likes of Bae Jun-ho, Yang Min-hyuk and Om Ji-sung, who've not played since the EFL season in England ended on May 3rd. A draw against Iraq would see South Korea book their place at the 2026 World Cup.
Well, sticking with football, Tottenham Hotspur held quite a celebration for their Europa League victory.
Yes, a huge parade through North London on Friday. Tottenham Hotspur, thanks to a 1-0 win over Manchester United in Bilbao last Wednesday, secured their first piece of silverware in 17 years, winning the Europa League. It was also their first European honour in 41 years. And it meant a first honour in general for captain Son Heung-min. Needless to say, the celebrations were grand. Thousands lined the streets as the Spurs players paraded the Europa League trophy through North London. There were also some speeches afterwards. Son declared that he loves the fans, while manager Ange Postecoglou hinted at what's to come next year, saying that in a TV series, Season 3 is better than Season 2. Well, Season 2 ended on Sunday with Spurs losing 4-1 to Brighton to finish 17th.
Moving on to table tennis, Shin Yu-bin has done something that no female Korean star has done in decades.
That's right, winning 2 medals at a single world championship. Shin and Ryu Hana won bronze in the women's doubles at the World Table Tennis Championships in Qatar on Saturday. They lost the semi-final 3-2 to Sofia Polkanova of Austria and Bernadette Zox of Romania. But with no third-place match, they secured bronze automatically. Shin and Ryu have played together before, too, doing so in the Asian Junior Championships in 2018, winning gold. But a bronze in the mixed doubles with Im Jong-hoon. Shin, therefore, became the first female Korean player to win multiple medals at a World Championship in 32 years. The last person to do so was Hyun Jung-hwa in 1993.
Great stuff. All right, thanks for that. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
The last of the spring weather petered out over the weekend, and the summer heat has gradually returned from today. The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 26 degrees Celsius today, which is 3 degrees higher than yesterday. Temperatures will rise day by day throughout the week, reaching as high as around 30 degrees in the later half. Strong ultraviolet rays were detected in most areas today due to the strong sunshine. In particular, the UV index was reported as very high in the Seoul metropolitan area and Gangwon-do provinces, where there was less cloud cover. It is expected to reach very high across the country tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Busan will start off at 15 degrees Celsius, with Chuncheon and Gyeongju at 12 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 26 degrees in Seoul and 23 degrees in Busan and Jeju. However, heavy showers are expected in eastern areas tomorrow and Wednesday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Tomorrow, we will be coming to you live an hour earlier at 7 p.m. Korea time. The third and final presidential debate will be aired at 8 p.m. on Arirang. Thanks for watching.
Travel creates new experiences and unforgettable memories. Through landscapes, food, scents, and textures, it awakens and satisfies our senses. The endless joy and inspiration of traveling.
To set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
한반도에서 가장 먼저 아침이 시작되는 곳. 대한민국 최동단에 위치한 섬. 천연기념물 제336호로 지정된 자연유산. 이곳은 경상북도 울릉군 울릉읍 독도입니다. 그런데 일본이 대한민국 고유 영토인 독도를 일본 영토라며 일방적으로 주장하고 있어요. 그 때문에 독도와 관련된 잘못된 정보들이 퍼지고 있답니다. 안녕하세요. 저는 방크에서 활동하는 성혜승 연구원입니다. 방크는 1999년에 설립된 후 지속적으로 독도 바로 알리기 활동을 하고 있는데요. 지금부터 제가 독도에 대한 올바른 정보를 알려드리겠습니다. 독도는 역사적, 지리적, 국제법적으로 명백하게 대한민국 영토라고 할 수 있어요. 대한민국에 현존하는 가장 오래된 역사책인 삼국사기에 보면 독도는 신라 지증왕 13년, 그러니까 512년 전부터 한국 역사에 등장합니다. 대략 1500년 전부터 독도는 우리의 영토였던 거죠. 독도가 한국 땅이라는 역사적 증거는 이렇게 차고 넘쳐요. 지리적으로 살펴보면 일본 영토에서는 독도가 보이지 않지만 독도와 87km 떨어진 울릉도에서는 독도가 육안으로도 보일 정도로 가깝죠. 그리고 또 한 가지 중요한 사실. 독도에는 대한민국 독도경비대가 상주하고 있어요. 왜냐고요? 독도는 명백하게 대한민국이 지배하는 곳이니까요. 독도가 대한민국 고유의 영토라는 사실, 이제 확실히 아시겠죠? 한국 바로 알리기, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-kyeon. As the presidential race enters its final stretch, candidates are sharpening their focus on key social policies, issues that strike directly at the everyday lives of voters. The second televised debate on Friday was the last opportunity for candidates to sway public opinion before the pre-election polling blackout. The debate saw sharpened attacks and competing visions on how to address South Korea's most pressing social challenges, from deepening social divides and pension sustainability to healthcare reform and administrative capital relocation as well. So to help us unpack the key moments and implications, we connect to Choi Hyun-sun, professor of public administration at Myungji University. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
And also joining us is Kim Jo-eun, assistant professor of the KDI School of Public Policy and Management. Great to see you.
Great to see you again.
So let's begin our discussion, Professor Che. So on the debate itself. So on Friday, 4 presidential candidates held their second televised debate. And compared to the first debate, the negative attacks seemed to kind of intensify. How did you perceive the shift in tone? And also, since this was the final debate before the ban on polling results, do you think it could influence undecided voters?
First of all, I'm surprised how fast time goes. Only 8 days left this important away from this important presidential election. I think the public opinion polls will be stopped from the May 28th. So I think the second debate was very important. But unfortunately, I could say negative campaign worked somewhat. I think that in the second televised presidential debate, we can see how intensified, especially among the candidates, especially they criticize each other, especially like PPP candidate Kim Moon-soo and then the Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok maybe criticize much about the front runner Lee Jae-myung's policy proposal and past administrative decisions. Also, unfortunately, we could see about Kim criticized about the individual family history of Lee Jae-myung, because this is about some kind of some bad things and lie against ethics, something like that. But also at the same time, the Lee Jae-myung criticized Kim about the far-right politics. I think that he argue maybe Kim still support maybe use martial law or something like that. So that is maybe not good way how we can see the campaign. I think unfortunately, this negative campaign worked so much because if we see the latest Gallup Korea poll, actually the Lee dropped 6% and Kim rising 7%, which is there the margin is narrowed down. I think I think it's so bad. I hope the third maybe debate and in the voting time, maybe our citizens in Korea maybe realize how important is president election rather than the negative campaign. We must see the policy. I think that this is just the last chance we can see the opinion poll. So I think the second debate was very important.
Right, and like you said, largely it was seeing intensified negative campaigning in that. Now, let's get into the details, the root causes of the division right now. So during the second debate, which was focused on social issues, progressive candidates cited polarization and low growth as the main causes of societal division, while conservative candidates pointed out to corruption, dishonesty, and hate-based framing. Professor Kim, in your view, what is the primary cause of division in South Korean society?
I think conservative perspective and both like progressive and conservative perspective, they contain valid points. So one is economic issue, and another thing is like conservative parties recommended it's hate-driven narratives. They both do contribute to social division. However, I would argue that economic factors serve as more fundamental causes, while hate-driven narratives function as an amplifying mechanism that intensify polarization rather than originate it. So when I say economic issue, it's not simply about economic inequality, because South Korea has experienced economic inequality for decades, but the current level of social division is relatively a recent phenomenon. So the more fundamental cause is, I would argue, two key factors. So one is declining economic opportunities, so which is different from static economic inequality. So while, economic inequality measure unequal distribution of wealth and resources at a single point of time, declining opportunity requires examining trends over time. So a growing population in South Korea, especially younger generation, face diminishing prospect for securing stable employment or middle-class lifestyle despite working harder than previous generation. So if you consider the past generation could obtain secure jobs, support families, have even comfortable retirements without exceptional credentials. But today's young people, they work harder to get into the good university and have all these certificates, but they achieve much less. So this frustration, the disappearance of opportunities that were previously accessible drives some of the discriminatory attitudes and prejudice against, minorities or other groups. But the problem is that not everyone experiencing declining opportunities turns to hatred of others. This is where culture becomes crucial. So numerous scientific studies worldwide show that hostility toward immigrants or racial minority, it could be sexual minorities, have intensified, but this isn't primarily driven by people with lower education or lower income, so-called working class. Instead, it's fueled by those people who perceive that their privilege are threatened by these minorities. And privilege here refers to advantaged access to resources based on their identity markers. It could be being men or belonging to certain racial group or social classes. And progressive social movements that we had across high-income countries have challenged many of these previously unquestioned privilege, and this status threat generates frustration that manifests into hostility toward other groups. So fundamental cause, in my perspective, of social division, not just in Korean society, but globally, stems from combination of two factors: declining social opportunities and feelings of status threat, the belief that certain advantage should be deserved, but they're no longer available. So right. I would say two factors will be the fundamental causes.
All right. Thank you for the sharp analysis of the current situation. Now, so each candidate, going back to the debate, each candidate proposed a different solution for national unity. Professor Che, what were the key differences in their approaches? And also, could you tell us, do you believe any of the proposed plans could effectively reduce the current polarization?
It is a very hard issue, so I'm not sure about if their proposal can solve this problem. But Lee Jae-myung identified, as Professor Kim explained, polarization and significant disparity is the root cause of the social conflicts. So he suggests about maybe we need growth. We need growth again, and through the maybe public investment or some kind of the other investment for the revitalizing like our economy. So the maybe intelligence, the artificial intelligence, and maybe renewable energy and cultural content industry. He suggests to maintain our growth, to reduce our social division. Kim Mun-soo also proposed about some economic revitalization through the deregulation and tax cuts and job creation, but he criticized about the dishonesty and lies of the candidate Lee Jae-myung. So maybe he says about maybe similar or little different, but a similar approach about the economy is important. But he says about the lying and the dishonesty is not good. That's just the root cause of the social division. So that is his comment. Lee Jun-seok also say about the make minimum government. So I think we reduce the government and their bureaucratic issue. Maybe we can making better, efficient society. Also, Kwon Young-gu also suggests about the labor rights and the social equity. I think they have all the main issues. I think but the more feasible maybe idea, maybe based on the polarization issue and the social disparity issue. Based on that, they propose economic growth. That is a good way of. I think whether public investment or the deregulation, I think the voters will choose which one is better.
So they had laid out a lot of ideas, and this contrast really shows how they envision healing a divided society. And a lot of differences in terms of philosophy. Now let's also touch upon pension reform. Lee Jae-myung and Kwon Young-guk emphasized strengthening old age security, while Kim Mun-soo and Lee Jun-seok also focused on easing the burden on younger generations. Professor Kim, how do you assess these approaches? And also, what would be a realistic pension reform look like?
So I think that both strengthening old age security and financial burden, or reducing financial burden on the younger generation are critical objectives. But the candidates frame these as contradictory goals, but they're not necessarily incompatible. These kind of false dichotomy actually obscure potential solutions that can address both concerns at the same time. So structural reforms, we need to gradually increase the retirement age to reflect increased life expectancy, but we must be strategic about this implementation. The key is coupling this change with a shift toward performance-based salary system rather than seniority-based salary system. Korea's current workplace culture, where compensation increases automatically with age, regardless of your productivity, creates a disconnect between contribution and reward that undermines both economic efficiency and pension sustainability. So this change would address intergenerational equity concerns. And by moving to performance-based compensation, we can actually make it economically viable for employers to retain older workers while ensuring that those workers are contributing meaningfully to productivity. So these address concern that simply raising retirement age forces companies to pay higher wages for potentially lower productivity. And another thing is that we need policies that increase female labor force participation. And then you asked me about old age pensions sustainability, and then, younger people's financial burden, and why am I talking about female labor force participation? But Korea has one of the lowest female labor force participation among high-income countries, and representing enormous untapped potential for economic growth and pension contributions. So this connects directly to workplace reforms by creating more flexible work, family environments, and moving away from the rigid seniority system that often disadvantage women's career progression. We can address not just female labor force participation, but as well as pension sustainability.
Right. So
we must be realistic about the implementation challenges. Any major pension reforms will face resistance from various groups. So key is framing this as not as a zero-sum battle between generations, but as a comprehensive modernization of Korean economic and social systems. So when we strengthening the pension sustainability while reforming workplace practices, we're not just ensuring retirement security, we're creating more dynamic and equitable economy that benefits everyone.
Right. So it's not really a yes or no situation. It's all intertwined and connected. And we should, like you said, have boosting female labor force as well as having a performance-based retirement age system would be definitely a good help. Now, healthcare was another major focus in the debate. All candidates have emphasized differentiating their healthcare policies from those of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, including reconsidering the expansion of medical school admissions. Lee Jae-myung and Kwon Young-guk focused on strengthening public healthcare, while Kim Moon-soo and Lee Jun-seok emphasized enhancing medical professionalism. So, Professor Che, from a social integration perspective, do you find these approaches appropriate to restore the healthcare system?
I think if we want to overcome the tragedy, maybe bureaucratic tragedy in the Yoon's administration about this medical issue and health insurance issue, I think we must focus on how we can make a consensus. In terms of that, the consensus, Lee Jae-myung maybe he proposed about the building social consensus process for the medical school quota. It's a very important issue. While the Kim Moon-soo maybe propose about enhancing medical professional expertise and they involved in the decision making, maybe he would make a presidential commission for the future health and the medical issue. So I think both strong candidates maybe suggest about we could overcome with some consensus building process. I think but Kim Moon-soo's idea is more similar to the Yoon administration's commission already we have. It doesn't work. So I think from the maybe bottom, we must maybe make a consensus and we make a process again. It would take a little time, but already 2 years passed. So I think if not, maybe how can we persuade maybe doctors and the many practices? So I think this is an important issue for our future. Maybe new government should solve in the next 6 months about this issue. I think the consensus building issue very important. I think both candidates maybe focus on that, how they can commit the consensus building.
So let's hope to see some breakthrough in the next administration that's coming in. Now, so as we've discussed, well, largely candidates have been divided in terms of policies. Interestingly, there's one major social pledge where all candidates showed rare unity, and it was the relocation of the administrative capital to Sejong City. Now, although this pledge resurfaces in every election, Professor Kim, what are the practical hurdles to making this actually happen?
So, I mean, my personal opinion, I might be wrong, but it is political unwillingness. And when I say political unwillingness, it operates on multiple levels. At the leadership level, presidents may genuinely support relocation during campaigns, but once in office, they face enormous practical and political costs. The scale of this type of project, which could last multiple years, often exceed the political capital any single administration is willing to invest. And another issue is that, there has been deep resistance from Seoul-based politicians, bureaucrats, and interest groups who benefit from the current concentration of power. And these stakeholders will resist relocation, not just because personal inconvenience, but because it threatens their accumulated advantage and influence. And of course, beyond political unwillingness, there are significant constitutional and legal hurdles and resistance from citizens in metropolitan area who are concerned about, housing prices. And to succeed, Korea would need a president willing to make these, relocation to Sejong as their defining legacy project, combined with, cross-party consensus and sustained public pressure. So until that fundamental political dynamic changes, we're likely to see these promises continue appearing during the elections and campaigns without meaningful progress toward realization.
Right, so a very strong willingness would be necessary to push forward with this pledge. Now, criticism has been lingering over many pledges. While candidates have rolled out a lot of social pledges, including those related to healthcare, elder care, critics argue that they're largely aimed more at attracting votes than offering actual viable solutions. So, Professor Kim, in your view, what should be the top priority among these social policy pledges?
So, if you're asking about my personal opinion, it could be demographic challenges that we have. But if you're asking me about my impression about the discussion and what is the most pressing issue that was discussed in the entire discussion, the second debate, it was quite difficult to grasp what they were actually pursuing because, as Professor Choi mentioned, these candidates spend maybe 1 or 2 sentences talking about the actual topic, but the remaining 99% of their time attacking each other. So rather than engaging in constructive and healthy discussion, I didn't get to hear any specific and concrete plans. If I have to talk about these demographic changes, of course, first, comprehensive support for families should be the top priority. And as we all know, Korea has one of the lowest fertility in the world, and this isn't just about individual choice. It's about structural barriers that make it increasingly difficult to have family and raise children. And this means that not just financial support, but creating complete ecosystem, accessible daycare, parental leave policies that do not penalize career, and workplace culture that accommodates this type of family responsibilities. And then second, which were not so much mentioned during the discussion, is that elderly care infrastructure is becoming a critical issue as we get rapidly aging. And we need integrated system that provide both institutional care for those who need it and support for families caring for elderly relatives at home. This isn't just about building, homes and facilities for the elderly. It's about creating, again, sustainable and care models that do not bankrupt families. And what's crucial is that these aren't separate issues and they're interconnected challenges that require coordinated approaches. For example, childcare policy I mentioned affects women's labor force participation, and then it again leads to pension sustainability. And the problem is that campaign debates, they tend to fragment this issue into competing priorities rather than presenting them as a part of integrated social policy framework. So without hearing this substantial policy discussion from the candidates, it's difficult to evaluate what they understand these interconnected connections of these issues, or simply offering isolated promises. So what would be great to hear from these candidates, not just about what they promise to spend money on, but how they plan to actualize or create sustainable system that address Korea's demographic crisis.
Right. So let's hope for the last coming debate there would be less political wrangling and more fruitful discussions on policies and how to implement them moving forward. Now, as for now, we will have to wrap up our discussion here at this point. But thank you so much for your time and for your insights tonight, Professor Kim and Professor Che. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu.